So hi, Thomas.
Hi Ed, how are you doing?
We are at Neuzeit,
Yes, Neuzeit instruments.
and you're going to show us Warp, right?
Yes, exactly. Warp is a oscillator slash. Actually, it's a full synthesizer voice that relies on wavetable and additive synthesis and has a hybrid approach to these two technologies. We have 4 voices. As a standalone unit, Warp is monophonic, but with an expander, it is 4-voice polyphonic. Basically, on the top side, we have here an XY grid that are 32 by 16 wavetables. I will call it wavetables for now. Actually, it's frequency spectra. We have control over the XY position, so you have, like in a regular wavetable synth, can navigate the wavetables in 2 directions. When I add in more voices, we have more dots, because every voice is represented by a dot depending on its volume. They can also have different positions, so I can pick up wavetable spectra from, each voice can sound different depending on the location on the grid. We have like the standard features like detune, oscillators, sync, so each voice has 2 oscillators. The idea is to get every kind of audio range between glassy and this additive kind of sound, but also wavetable sounds that are kind of grungy. I think we'll just
Let's
listen
to it.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the coolest features is that you can pretty intuitively draw your own frequency spectra and wavetables onto this XY grid with a kind of fun to use editor. So I go to this XY paint menu and have 3 methods to choose how I want to draw on this, like I'm drawing on a canvas. For example, the first algorithm is a pick from XY. So this kind of works like the Photoshop copy stamp, where I have the screen one is my cursor now. I can pick a frequency spectrum. I see it up here, that's the cursor. And I'll start with a blank sine wave in the left corner. I pick that. Now I can drag it to another position, adjust my kind of brush size here, and then I can go on and draw a frequency spectrum up here. So I say I want to increase every 3rd overtone, for example, and turn that up. And I will, in this way, I can pretty intuitively, like with an etch and scratch style interface, I can do additive synthesis. So I'm adding a frequency spectra here, and I see the resulting waveform on top. This is going to sound like this. I put this to solo mode, so we have no effects applied, so we're listening to the blank wavetable now. I tune it up. And while I'm doing this, I can always check if this still fits into my my wavetable when I'm adjusting the position here. I'll go on. So I'm checking in 2 directions if this is a nice transition that I want to have. and I can alter it as I like to my taste. And when I think that's fine, then I hit apply, then it bakes it into the spectrum, and now it's fixed in the XY grid. Another possibility to load, paint on the spectrum is I can load from this SD card wavetable files. So, for example, on this SD card there are a bunch of wavetable files from some retro synths or from some Casio synths, and I'll just import one of these. So now the green bar on the bottom, it represents our wavetable file that I imported. With the white cursor I can preview that. I put it back to solo mode. So when I'm navigating through here, this is the wavetable we just imported. I can also alter like the wavetable length. It tries to make a sophisticated guess on the right length. In this case, 1024 seems to be correct. And I can also set the position of that wavetable and how far, how wide it is, how strong my transition is then. So I'll try to find a location where I get a nice wavetable sweep here. Yeah, when I'm done as well, I hit place, and now it's baked into the spectrum. I can also select just a single grain. For example, I have this cello here, and I just pick a random waveform, can turn on snap to grid so that I don't have any artifacts at the edges. And now I can import a single waveform, and from that starting point I would go on with my drawing and alter that one. Yeah, it's the same principle.
So you can do that from any kind of wave files, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So when I have something that is one tone, I can try and capture just one cycle and capture that, or I can also import noise or whatever I want to have from the SD card. I can also export the whole XY grid as a wavetable for another synthesizer. So every wavetable synthesizer requires a different format. So I can set it between 16, 24, 32 bits. I can say the wavetable length if it's 512, so the usual lengths or something. Yeah, and then it saves the wavetable on the SD card. So I can use this one as an editor for to create wavetables in a playful and intuitive way, instead of having a piece of software where I draw every table on its own. Also, I can save and load presets. I can give every preset a name and choose a name with the alphabet. And another fun thing is that every preset is actually a wave file, a dot wave file. So I write the data, the module leads, I write that in the header of the file, but it's actually a wave file, and I can just drag and drop the preset from the SD card into my synthesizer of choice. If for any reason I might want to use another wavetable synthesizer then, like software synth, or when I'm more like a software-based guy. Yeah, so what we actually just drew were not only wavetables, actually we drew spectra. So there is this wavetable and the additive side of the synth, and I can now add certain effects. For example, this is a spectral effect when I turn down the other ones. This is something like a comp filter. I just that I apply. So all these potentiometers, they are macro knobs, and they have several purposes. So I can always map how much this knob affects the depth of the spectrum, for instance, or also select a different kind of spectrum. And depending on where I am in my grid, this may have a different impact. I just stick with the comp filter for this one. I can also set which area it picks up from the spectrum.
So a very flexible oscillator,
yes,
as we can see. Yeah.
After it has the spectrum, it creates in real time a wavetable from that, and then I have certain wavetable typical effects that I can apply with this knob. So there are 4 effects by now. There are wave folder, PWM band, bit reduction, overdrive. So these happen after the spectral effects. They can be really gnarly. I can just dial it to whatever type I want. And as this can be really rich in overtones, I can also go back. Go back, and I have a regular low-pass, high-pass filter that I can apply, and also map to the spectrum knob with resonance and 12 dB or 24 dB per octave. So I have two knobs that are in the frequency spectrum and in the time domain spectrum that I can use to make some macro mappings and get really fluid transitions between all these shapes. So last but not least, you might have noticed these two. There are extensive modulation capabilities in the module. So we have two ADSRs. One ADSR is fixed to the volume. One ADSR can be assigned to everything, as well as two LFOs. They have all global impact and global speed control that I can set here. And finally, there is a big modulation matrix where I can practically set every source to every target. You know what I mean.
I think I know what you mean, yeah.
And also dial in how much each of these global modulation depth and speed knobs affects what. So after all this menu diving, I can go outside, and now I have mapped some really expressive knobs and play the module with the big knobs here and forget about all the menu, as I can recall and save presets. My attempt is to cover both worlds and to make a module that is as well used for going really detailed into sound design, but also being capable of a performative module, so that you can take this on stage and know pretty much what each thing is doing. So with the expander, in the end, we will get also MIDI in and MIDI through, as well as CV gate control over all the four voices, so then you can also play a chord and use this as a true polyphonic voice. So every processing step, the filters, everything is already being processed as voice per voice.
Brilliant. Wow, Thomas.
Yeah. I think we covered the most important stuff.
I think we got most of it. How far along in the development cycle are you? When do you think it will be available to the public?
We scheduled September as the release date, and that's actually pretty realistic. And the expander will be a little later on.
And and what will be a kind of price? Do you have a kind of final price?
This will be 699 euros, including tax in the store. And the expander will be as cheap as possible, so that for around 800 bucks plus minus, you will get a full synthesizer voice that is also MIDI capable, and maybe also serves as a standalone unit in your rack. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Thomas, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening.
Cheers.
See you next time.